Hi, my name is Marilyn Belleau. At present, I'm hired as a consultant for Esk'etemc Health. I've been working at Health since 2018. I started out as working out at the recovery center, setting up the policies and procedures and getting it up and running. And so far, it's still going. And the second I've been working on is called the accreditation. I worked with Accreditation Canada to get accreditation for the Esk'etemc Health. And accreditation involves looking at the way we can meet the standards for healthcare and using the best practices. And so in the last year, we were doing what you call the assessments. We did the assessments with staff, and from those questions, we established that this needs to be, there's some areas that needed to be addressed. And so I proceeded to work on some policies and procedures again in health relating to infection prevention control. I've also done the medication management, and along with the nurses, I've helped work on that. As part of accreditation, I've helped set up the survey visit just recently, and so a surveyor was out at the community, but not in the community, but via Zoom. It was a virtual, and so they've done that again in order to see if we are meeting the areas in all of the areas in health. And so it's been really, really challenging for me because as a graduate of the University of Lethbridge, I've been able to use a lot of my skills that I've gotten, and so recently I've been hired to work on the 10-year health plan, and that involves with Health Canada to establish a 10-year health plan, because the last one was done in 2011, and so I'm going back and looking and evaluating, assessing, analyzing. Those are my skills. That's what I've been doing. But yeah, and I just let you know a little bit history about myself. My father was a hereditary chief. Chief Charlie T. Johnson was hereditary chief from 1955 to 1975. And he was the last hereditary chief. And then when they had the election system coming, Irvin was the first chief. You've met Irvin? Yeah. And so in 1996, I was elected chief for my community and served a 2-year term. And during that time, I've helped establish we were taking over health, and that's why I'm going back and I'm saying, I did this in 1996. I helped the building being established. Now I'm going back. So it's been a really, really good journey for me. So I'm finding that, being a chief also had me become more what I call a generalist. And in what I learned in university, there's specialists and then generalists. You become a generalist because you get to know all the areas of the band. And that's what I found. I liked being on council, and I saw all what I called the problems and issues. And when I was on Andy's council back in 1976, when he was establishing the sobriety movement, I call it, I was there. I was one of those that helped doing the interventions with our people in order to get them address their alcoholism, and then we ended up getting them to treatment in Alberta mainly, Poundmakers Lodge, Bonnyville, and then there was a few in BC, but not at that time. There wasn't too many. But what I noticed during that time, the people had come to a point where they changed, because it was like an evolution in 1982. And I noticed even for myself, 1982 was a big transformation, because we went through not only life skills, the interpersonal experience was a workshop we took, and that really, really changed, because you know what? All of a sudden, all those years in residential school, we were stopped in our development, because, you know, whether it was nuns saying, this is as far as you'll go, or else saying, you know, you're not good enough, or you can't do this. And 1982 was the first time I just broke out. It was just like, hey, I can do this. I can go to school. I can go to university. You know, and I was really amazed that turn, because I think a lot of people, not only the sobriety helped, but you know, the awareness that, yeah, we're capable of doing things, and so I believe that when the public is asking about truth and reconciliation, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear truth and reconciliation, because people, when we were in Williams Lake going to school in the 1960s, nobody knew there was a residential school just down the road. Nobody knew. Came in the bus, and it was like if they were hidden there. And so I think a lot of things had led to the truth and reconciliation. And what I was talking about was when people started sobering up, people getting, and all of a sudden, in 1989, when the RCMP came and started checking out, and they were finding out there were some people that were abused at residential school. And so I was, I'm telling you my story because I was sitting in an office, and all of a sudden Grinstead came in and said, Marilyn, were you part of the pipe band? I said, yes. And I was, you know, all of a sudden he said, well, do you know, and all of a sudden it was just like my world came down. It's just somebody knew and were questioning. And finally, when I told my story, and told my story in court about the abuse of the bishop he was a bishop by then, and we'd taken him to court. 5 of us ladies had taken him to court. And that took a lot at that time to go and make these statements. And when you go to court and they say, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? So help me God. And said, yeah. And so it was told in court. So the truth was there. Truth was in the papers. And people were shocked. And I think it was even harder from the 90s to move on to find out the actual things that had happened there, and the impacts it had on a lot of people. Because for myself, it was hard because my aunts that were still living at the time, they were saying, I can't believe those priests would do anything like that. That was really, really hard, even to hear the truth here in our community. I guess what was really hard was the healing, the circle that they came, and they brought O'Connor here, and that was the time I came and I just went right up to him and I said, "This is yours, it's not mine." And I was able to take my shame, my coat of shame, and I was really, much stronger then. And now I don't feel, anything. It's just like my truth is out there, and nobody can hurt me anymore. And I guess what I had hoped, and for the committee that was doing the Truth and Reconciliation, they came, we told our stories again. It's just like cutting up a wound again and telling our stories. That was really hard. And a lot of us, we didn't want to do that, but we did it so the world could hear. But what happened is, seems like they shelved it for, I don't know, it was on the shelf, our stories, in a museum. But we're still here. Some of the residential school survivors are still here. And there still hasn't been any further reconciliation, not only with the government, the churches, and the people, because it seems like there was no restitution. There was nothing that said, we got our little 10,000, our little 30,000, came and went, but that still didn't take away the pain. That didn't take away any of the memories. And I guess what I feel that a lot of the leaders, whether it's past leaders or the other leaders, some of them brushed it aside and didn't do anything with that material. And even with the 94 recommendations, I'm probably only about not even a quarter or less than that has been looked at. And so I think, we need to do more, and while people like us are still alive. Don't wait till somebody's gone, put a plaque on and say, okay, we remembered them and their story. Do something today while the people are still here. And I know in my case, it's not only affected, like with my husband and I, it was really, really hard to have a, marriage that's lasted 45 years. And I know Dave has struggled a lot. So this whole thing, it just trickles out and affects not only our family, our extended family, but our immediate family as well. Because a lot of my children today, whether here we are, we're sober, but my children still had to go out and find out and experiment with drugs and alcohol, and at times ended up in hospital. And I tell Dave, like I thought we were, we were doing good. And but it's just recently now that they're getting the help. So I think a lot of the mental help that we got years ago. You were only allowed 25 visits. Can you imagine that? We're supposed to be well in 25 visits. That was hard, and so I think there's just more ways to deal with not only this generation but the next generation as well. There's a lot of work to be done. And right now we have only one person that comes out. His name is Bill McGinnis. Comes out once a week, and his bookings are full every week. And there's people that are in their 40s that are accessing that now. And so I'm thinking there's not enough people to help service. There's Betty in here, and there's Lori up at the center, and there's a few others with skills. But when the government asks for you to hire a clinician, I mean, God, we don't have people with masters that can help, but we have people that are counselors that can help, and maybe we do need the professionals, but we can't wait. We just have to get people working with our people while they can. And and I say this with a lot of respect to our chief and council. They're doing their best, but at the same time, we need to look for further resources, and some, it's not just a matter of saying, okay, we'll just do a big conference and we'll spend the money that way. No, that's not going to help. We need more one-on-one direct family groupings, things like that would help. And because Dave said he's told his story to his to our sons, and I've told part of my story to one of my sons when we were doing the walk, and I revealed like a lot of fallouts as a result of the residential school. Some of them haven't been recorded, but all of a sudden the 60s scoop came up, and I thought, oh my God, here I had 2 sons out there that were relinquished to adoption, and now they came back. And that just really threw a number on me. It's just like I was thrown back, and at that time I ended up falling in depression, and of course they just deal with the give you Prozac and think, oh yeah, everything will be all right, but it doesn't help that. So I ended up going to Mary Louie, who was a medicine woman, and she helped me more than a person, a clinician. She helped me more. I got out of that, ended up going to a sweat in a cold creek, jumping in a cold creek, and then shouting as loud as I can, and because she was telling me, you need to get that out, So when I think of those kind of things that maybe we don't have, we don't need money for, but the thing is we still need to have it arranged so people can go and do the cultural things to help address any of the, what I call, letting go and just feeling good. And John, you mentioned reconciliation a few times, and even myself, I struggle with that term, and I'll tell you why. Because as a former accountant, I think of reconciliation. I thought, oh my God, that's seeing what's here and trying to match what's here, and both of them have to balance. That's what I see, and I'm trying to get that word into the context of what we're talking about today. How do we do a balance? And like our society today, right now we're unbalanced. And I guess when I say reconciliation, you think about how, I guess the word that comes to me, and I mentioned it before, was the restitution, bringing what's wrong and making it right. That's restitution. That's what I understand. But for us, so long we've lived in this country has been really not being treated equally. And I say that because I know my dad, when he wanted to go work outside this community, he had to get permission to go work. And then they couldn't pay him. They had to pay him in kind. You couldn't pay him in cash. So he was not treated as same as somebody out there, and trying to look after a family. So you can see the imbalance that's occurred, not just recently, in the 50s. And 1975, can you imagine that? I was in Williams Lake. I came from Vancouver. I come to visit my grandfather, Henry. And Henry and I were going to go eat in a restaurant. And I told Henry, let's go over there and eat. It was near where the post office is now, and there was a restaurant there. And he says, no Indians allowed in there. And I said, oh no. And I was just from the city. So he said, only place they accept Indians is down the ranch, which is down Oliver, right at the end of the Mackenzie. And I said, you mean they don't allow us? You know, and I was surprised because I came from the city. And that wasn't that long ago, so I can't imagine how we've been treated, being on reserve. We're still on reserve, and people think we get, you know, we get a lot of new housing, we get a lot of benefits, we get a lot, but we're not. We're still paying taxes when I go to town, and I still treat it. But I'm finding when we talk about reconciliation, it's a two-way street, because I'm finding that we have to be accepted out there as well as when we accept people in our community. When people come to our community, we tell them that they need to follow protocol in order to come to our land, and they meet the chief and they do the protocol. And also recently we've been doing what they call cross-cultural, and I think we need more of that, for people outside need to learn how we are, and I see that as a part of the reconciliation. And also accepting us when we're in town. I'm finding that still, that overt, I call it, it's underneath, and it's still there. I think, you know, when we meet our, whoever it is, the government officials or whoever it is, the church, we need to tell them that they need to do their part as well, not just only us. Because I feel like we're struggling with this, and like again with that imbalance, it needs to be balanced. And I think the council, if they can find out, you know, like we need to have equal opportunities, because even right now, I own my house, but I've got no value in it. I can't borrow the bank against it, and we're hampered in several ways, you know, still through the Indian Act. So I see reconciliation coming from the government to start looking at us and seeing us as people, and seeing us as businesses that can succeed, seeing us as not downtrodden people that are on the streets, people that are in that are having addictions, and I know that's going to be a hard task for the council, because what you're looking at is you're trying to right a wrong that's been there for 150 years, and we're trying to right a wrong that's been there only even in the last 50 years, and it's a big task, I can tell you. You're going to be faced with a lot of opposition, but I think we need to get the residential school survivors to come together with one voice and stating that, because here we are, we're saying, yeah, we're survivors, but that's not enough. We need to be more, like my son says, you need to be more like a thriver. You know, we're living, we're not just survivors and staying still. And we need to start moving more towards healthier ways of dealing with each other, because I'm finding it here on the reserve. Some of us are still kind of stuck in the old, whether I'd say 60s, 70s, 80s mentality, and we need to get out of that because I found in myself I've had to learn to adapt. I've learned to everything that's come along. I've tried, and whether it's a new phone, and I'm still struggling with it. I'm learning to do the Zoom. I've never done that before. So there's a lot of things that are new to us that are, and you need to find ways to help us move forward because I think, it's okay to say, well, it gave you money, you got your truck, you got your house, but that truck's gone, it's old, and that money is gone. And I'm not saying we need money to help us. What we're saying is we need programs, things that are going to be standing the test of time. That's what we need. And whether, and I've seen Fred in his work that he's done in the past with the outside, he's been able to connect, and I think that's where we need to do is to bridge that gap and start connecting. And that's going to be a task. And I'm just glad the council is trying to help and get us to move through this truth and reconciliation, even though we're struggling with the term because we don't know what the other side thinks. Because I learned that in university when we're doing negotiations, we've got to remember what the other side is also thinking, because their term may be different than ours. The reason I'm saying that is because I sat across a lot of the negotiation doing treaty, and I found that it wasn't a fair field to play. They used their rules, and we were back here, and we never got very far. So I know that's why we need to look and see what's on the other side. Yeah. Anyway, I'm really grateful today with John doing this project, and thank you to Betty for. I was a last minute person, but I'm glad to be here today to assist you. And if there's any other meetings we need to do or clarification, let us know. Esk'etemc, thank you.